Hi guys, and welcome to part 15 of Skyrim Mod Sanctuary. Now, one of the things I decided when starting my latest playthrough is that I wanted it to be a little bit more interesting, more challenging, and a little tougher. But I didn't want to change the way the game felt. I generally wanted it to continue to feel the way the developers intended it to feel. I wanted to forget that I was using mods and just find myself having to concentrate more, try a little harder, and get a little bit more involved. And I tried quite a lot of mods, and there are some great ones, but I ended up settling for two mods that really did enrich the gameplay. The first of those mods is called Pluto Man's Improved Skyrim Experience, or PISE for short. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, PISE perhaps? And the stated aim for this mod is, and I quote, aims at making Skyrim a more challenging and rewarding game without changing the feel of vanilla Skyrim. So, off to a good start immediately, but what does it change? Well, the list of things it changes is quite large actually. First of all, it makes your opponents a little tougher, but it doesn't do it by giving them more health or making them hit harder, which is normally what happens when you increase the difficulty. It does it by increasing the number of spawns for one, so you get slightly more opponents. It changes the level scaling, so they're more likely to be slightly higher level. But that's just the sort of the small things. The big things I felt when playing this game are the way the NPCs act. So for example, mages will heal themselves more often. They'll heal earlier, which makes them quite tough to kill. They will actually heal each other. They'll heal their allies. Enemy humanoids have potions. You carry a bunch of potions and you use them when you need healing. Why don't the enemy? And this really changes the way you fight them. There's no more, just weaken all your opponents bit by bit, just keep darting in and killing, doing slashes on 5 or 6 of them at once. You are going to focus on one and get him down before he has time to heal. You're going to be killing your enemy spellcasters very, very early on. And every now and again, you're going to find a spellcaster who can heal faster than you can damage him. If you've gone into a dungeon a little too early, you're not quite high enough level, you're going to find some fights where basically you're going on for 10 minutes and the spellcaster is not dying, and you're going to end up running away and coming back a few levels later, or coming back with a companion or something that's a bit tougher. It really does make you change the way you play this game quite a lot. It changes other aspects of the AI as well. So enemy bosses start shouting. They should be more accurate when they shout as well. They detect you easier if you're in plain sight. So if you're just trying to sneak up in front of something while it's looking at you, it's going to see you a lot easier. And just general overall changes to the AI. The NPCs are going to block more often. They're not going to attack you if you're blocking, and so on. It just generally makes them play cleverer. And so whilst it is tougher, it doesn't feel artificial. Now, if you're the sort of person who doesn't like to have too tough battles, I still recommend trying this mod out. If you're playing on Adept or Expert only, try this mod, reduce the difficulty of the game one stage, and try this mod. It actually does make fights more interesting. And harder, but in a good way. It also changes gold and loot quite a lot. There are usually less chances of getting special loot, so instead of walking out of every dungeon with 20 or 30 random magic items, you're going to have a few less. It seems to change gold as well. I think it's mostly in the NPCs, and the vendors you meet have got slightly less gold, and they're going to buy things from you at a much cheaper price, and they're going to sell them to you at a much more expensive price. They're going to try and make a lot more profit from you. So you find that even once you get to sort of level 30, level 40, in the vanilla game you were probably deciding which 3 or 4 houses to buy. You had so much spare cash. With this mod, you're using that money wisely. If you're spending all your money on spells, you're not going to be spending it on much else. If you're using it to buy loads of ingredients to pimp your smithing skill, you're not going to be using it for much else. You really do need to look after the money. So it really does. It's one of those things that you don't notice until you're playing it and you realise that it's changed the way you see things. Houses, they're such a luxury. They really are such a luxury. Vendors are also now completely de-leveled. Generally, their equipment will stay fairly constant throughout your game, and they are a lot less likely to have those special items, those amazing magic items. You're going to have to find them or create them using enchanting. And one last change I'm going to mention is the fact that dragons are now de-leveled as well. If you notice in the vanilla game, it was kind of convenient how when you were low level, all the dragons you met were low level weak dragons, and as you got higher level, you suddenly started meeting more ancient dragons, etc. Very convenient how that happened. Well, it's also a little bit unrealistic, and this mod de-levels them. Basically, you've got a chance of meeting any different type of dragon. And remember, all of this was done without the creation kit, so now the creation kit is released, who knows what's going to be added to this mod. But all in all, I can say this is one of those mods that I think I will be keeping in my load order now forever. It basically makes the game feel far more realistic, far more far more challenging is the best way of describing it, but not in a bad way. It's just generally enhanced the fun I'm having playing this game, and it's made it so that even once I've got to sort of level 40, I'm still having to try hard, I'm still having to concentrate, and I like that. And so we move on to the next mod. Now the next mod is all about dragons. And dragons, let's face it, they're the signature creature for Skyrim. They're the monster from the video. They are the big boss bad guy. They're supposed to be terrifying. They're supposed to be these immortal creatures that devastate the land, bringers of the end of time, that type of thing. And in reality, well, they're a bit weak. Let's face it, once you get past about level 20, when you hear a dragon, you don't think, oh crap, run away. You think, ooh, free loot and a dragon soul. They're tough, yeah, but they're not that tough. I'd rather fight a dragon than, say, 3 or 4 spellcasters if I didn't have magic resistance. It's, they're a little disappointing. I mean, you can actually watch town guards kill them off. If you ever just sit back and let the town guards kill a dragon, they will. Same is true of bandits out in the wild. Dragons go down very, very easily, so it sort of makes the idea of blades and dragon slayers a little silly. Well, there is a mod called Deadly Dragons. And unsurprisingly enough, this mod makes dragons very deadly. And it does this in a number of ways. The first thing it does is it gives them a lot more health. The dragons now have quite a lot of health. It's going to take a long time to beat them down. They have armor. Their skin acts as armor, so it's going to take even longer to knock them down. And they have far greater resistances. So, a fire dragon, don't bother with fire against a fire dragon, kind of pointless. Ancient dragons get extra abilities. Some of them are really annoying, as you will find out. And just in general, these dragons are now very, very hard to kill. He's also added quite a few extra types of dragon. Shock dragon, swamp dragon, nether dragon, worm, etc. They're pretty cool, actually. They're all very different levels, and a lot of fun to fight, actually. A lot of fun. They're very different types of spells. Poison as one type of breath, which is very interesting. There is a creature I've not found yet called the Dracolich, or Dracolich if you're somebody who likes to pronounce lich as the Dungeons and Dragons pronunciation. And all in all, just it makes dragons far harder to kill and far more interesting. Now, be warned, this will make dragon fights something to remember. They will make them a real sweat. I had one fight that started in the daytime and ended in pitch black darkness. It took that long to fight. You'll be using a lot of different abilities. I found myself using whirlwind sprint a lot to sort of dash out of cover behind the dragon, hit him a few times, and then run for cover again. And this was against a swamp dragon that's only level 30, and it took me a long time to kill him. You'll find yourself finding dragons that you will not be able to kill. I found one severely strong dragon. Well, he wasn't that strong, but compared to my level he was. I can't remember exactly which one it was. But we were fighting with Esbjörn and Delphine, and I was just not making a dent on him. There was a Thalmor helping us, and they had died. And basically I knew I wasn't going to be able to kill him, and both my followers were pretty much dead. In that sort of position of almost dead, because they're essential characters, thank God. And I decided to run the dragon, to kite him off to a very large village filled with the Forsaken. A lot of spellcasters in that village, some severe firepower. And then I ran away and I watched the dragon and the Forsaken fight for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. And the dragon more or less killed almost every single one of them in that huge village before he was brought down to ground. And once he was brought down to ground, I ran back, healed up my followers, brought them back to the downed dragon, and then used them to help me kill him. And it still took forever. So these fights become epic, and you will not just be running at the dragon and smacking him in the face. You'll be using every possible trick you have got, every single solitary technique you know, every ability. You will be using them just to get these things to die. And you may find yourself running away from dragons, especially at early levels. You may find yourself just thinking, this is not worth it, running away, and someone else can kill it. And it's brilliant. I mean, it really makes dragon fights something you remember. You walk away from those fights thinking, yes, killed him. So this mod is definitely a must-have for me now. It also adds some interesting craftable gear made from dragon items. The gear is extremely powerful. In fact, I actually thought it was overpowered when I first looked at it, but having played the game for a while, to be honest, I think some of this gear is needed just to fight some of these dragons. So the only problem I have with it is that it comes pre-enchanted. So if you've got good smithing skills, you can have this superb pre-enchanted stuff, and the enchantments are awesome, so you don't need the enchanting skill. So I'm not totally sure how I feel about that at the moment, but the gear is pretty incredible. However, you can actually play without it. It's an option. In fact, this mod has a lot of options. Installing PISE is pretty easy if you're going to install the full experience. If you want absolutely every change that he's implemented, you simply go along to the main files and download with Manager. However, if you want to customize it, if you want to choose which options, you're going to have to download it manually. Or at least this is what I suggest you do. You download it manually as a zip file and then build your own photo mod, which I'm going to do now just to show you how. Once you've downloaded the zip file, you need to extract it out. So I'm going to extract all, and I'm going to extract it here to the desktop. And then I can delete the zip file. And then I open up this folder. The first thing I'm going to do is delete pisa.esp. And this is because this file has absolutely everything in it. This is the all-in-one file. And I'm going to use the separated versions for now. If you actually want every single change that he's introduced, then you can keep the main file. But I'm just going to show you how to do this way. I'm going to delete the separated folder now. Then I'm going to do the optionals and decide which I want. Well, I don't want darker nights and brighter skies because I'm using the realistic lighting. The more intense level scaling I think I'll skip, and I don't have the weapons of 3E, so I don't need this plugin. In fact, the only one I want is the piece of reduced potions. That's if you want it. This basically you use with the potion ESP, and instead of getting, I think it's 3 or 4 potions, they only get 1 or 2 potions. Something like that. It's a reduced chance or something. So if you're annoyed by the number of potions the opponents have, you can add that one as well. And then kill the optionals. And I now have what is basically my foam mod set up and prepared. So I'm going to close the folder. I'm then going to make this into an archive. Now, there's plenty of ways of doing it. You can do it with 7-zip or WinRAR. It's up to you. I'm sure you can do it with make them into zip files using Windows, but I usually use WinRAR. And then I click OK, and I now have a zip file, and that is the zip file I'm going to use for my installation. So I got a Nexus Mod Manager, add mod from file, select the newly created archive, and it's now been added. So now in our plugins, you'll notice all the piece of files are selected. You can now deselect the ones you don't want and change the load order if you want. So for example, I've got all of these selected except the bartering tweaks, and I've also got the reduced potions optional added in. And that's it. Dead easy. Now, installing Deadly Dragons is actually very easy indeed. The mod author has made a very nice installer, but you do need to install 2 files. So, Deadly Dragons download with Manager, and you also need the Deadly Dragons texture pack full. So download that as well. Now it is detecting an old version I had. Do I want to overwrite the file? Yes. I've tested this with an older version. Now I go to the mods. Deadly Dragons 2.95. Activate. Now you get this great little installer. The difficulty is set at normal by default. And trust me, normal is seriously, seriously hard. Hard and hardcore make the game even harder. But be warned, to be honest, it's probably too hard if you're starting a new game. If you're maybe level 50 or 60 with great equipment and you really want a challenge, you could install it on hard or hardcore. But I generally don't like changing difficulty of mods midway through a playthrough. And I can tell you now, I tried hardcore on a new game, and the first dragon I waited basically till I was level 14, which is actually quite late. Normally you fight that dragon pretty early in the game, and I waited till I was level 14 and I fought that dragon, and it took, I don't know how long it took, to be honest, because I stopped halfway through. I'd got it to 90% health. We'd lost so many Whiterun guards you wouldn't believe. She kept summoning more on her horn, and I gained 15 skill increases just to get it to 10%. I mean, it looked like I was probably going to end that fight at level 20, having gained 6 levels. It was really too hard, and it was taking way too long. I would have been there for 3 or 4 hours. So for a new game on master difficulty at least, hardcore is just way too difficult. But normal is still hard. Trust me. Leave it on normal if you start a new game. The dragon weighting is for PISE. That basically allows these dragons to get weighted correctly with that mod. Now if you want the extra items, those very, very powerful items I was talking about earlier, you need to enable the crafting option. I'm going to leave them disabled because I like the challenge. Now this mod also lets you buff other creatures other than dragons just a little bit, but I actually quite like the difference between other creatures and the dragon, so I'm going to leave this disabled. Essential followers, enable this if you don't want your followers to die, and I have to tell you, I think you should enable this because against these dragons your followers are going to get annihilated. And finally, obviously pick your language and then hit install. And once you've installed the main mod, you also need to install the texture pack. Now, because the texture pack hasn't changed from 2.94 to 2.95, it thinks I should update it. Ignore this, click no. And off it goes. Now these textures are important because he's added a lot of extra dragons, and these are the textures for them. But once that's installed, so's the mod. And so we just go along to the plugins tab and check everything. We've got Deadly Dragons Normal, Deadly Dragons PISA, and Deadly Dragons EF. Now, one thing, you'll notice the Deadly Dragons PISA has Masters, Skyrim ESM, Deadly Dragons ESM, and Deadly Dragons Normal.esp. Now, I've not covered load order yet because it's not been that essential, but it is essential for this. Basically, these three files must appear before this one in the load order, so they must be above it. Now, ESM files, to be honest, it actually doesn't matter because the game automatically loads ESM files first, regardless of what load order you choose. So if you take Skyrim ESM and stick it down here, it won't do anything. The game will just simply ignore it no matter where you put it. And in fact, it actually looks like, yeah, the Nexus Mod Manager won't even let you do it. It's clever enough to realize there's no point. So ESM files will always be above here. Now, oh, that actually might be a setting. Anyway, leave it alone because it's good that the ESMs occur at the top. However, you can take Deadly Dragons and move it around. So I could move it to there. The problem is now it is expecting the Deadly Dragons Normal ESP to already be loaded, and it will not like it. Do not do that. Put it back there. Make sure it is below the Deadly Dragons Normal. And the same is true of just about every one of these files. You always need to make sure their masters, this list of masters here, comes above itself. But that's what load order is. Load order is the order the plugin is loaded, and it must be loaded after anything that is a master of itself to these three files. Okay? And that's it for this video. Now, before I go, I just want to cover a quick subject, and that is the Bethesda high quality texture DLC. A lot of people are wondering, can they use it? Should they use it? And will it work with other mods? Yes, yes, and yes. It's actually very good. They're a lot higher quality textures than the normal ones, but they're not as good as some of the mods. In fact, they're not as good as most of the mods I have recommended. But you can use them together. The faces and skin in the DLC, those textures are really nice. The blocky faces have disappeared. Skin looks more realistic. Everything just looks a lot better. And then when you put on top of it certain texture packs like Skyrim HD, Vert's Skyrim Flora Overhaul, the realistic water, etc., it looks even better. They don't replace as many textures as the DLC does. The DLC seems to replace thousands, but they replace lots of them with very good textures. So you just get the best of both worlds. Use them all. It works just fine. But you will need to tweak a couple of your ini files, because by default, if you use that DLC, it will more or less disable all your other texture mods, which is slightly annoying, but it's dead easy to fix, and I released a video a couple of days ago which covers this. It's dead simple. Go watch it. It's well worth it. So, I hope you join me for the next video, which is already underway. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember, hit the like button. I always appreciate that. And I hope to see you guys next time. And until then, have fun.